Okay, so last time we spoke, I think you were about to open your third data center. So can you let me know how I guess how the day went itself, and obviously what the sort of feedback has been from customers, whether you've already got customers or a pipeline. Give us a bit of overview of that.
Yeah, I'll do that. We had a grand opening on our third data center in Oslo in 5th of November. We were able to get quite a good response on that opening. We had one of the ministers of Norway attending the opening and doing the responsible for the formal ceremony. I would say the reason for getting this interest from the government in Norway is that data center is an area where there is a lot of attention on at the moment. And the reason for that is that Norway has a surplus of power, and there are incentives of building power intensive industry in Norway and using that power in Norway, generating workplaces and growth in the surrounding industry. So we had a really good opening with quite a lot of focus. The customer was happy with the handover, and the building is fully utilized by that specific customer, and equipment is up running, and the team is currently operating the data center. In addition to that, we've also started the second phase in Oslo, adding on another 4 megawatts, and we're currently in the middle of that build out, and we'll have it completed by this summer. So things is moving really good.
Okay, I mean, I was going to ask you in terms of customer uptake, the pandemic. I mean, clearly everyone has been turning to more digital infrastructure, I guess. Does that automatically mean that you've had an uptake of customer interest in colo facilities, or is there obviously the regrettable side is that obviously a lot of businesses are struggling with the lockdowns and maybe not being able to operate? So how have you seen the market? Are you getting lots more interest, much the same, some customers sort of throttling back? How do you characterize that?
We see an increased interest due to the pandemics. We see things are getting more digital. The kids are attending school from home using their computer, and the digital tools that we're using has to have a data center, and we see new customer looking at Norway, but we also see existing customer increasing their footprint in our data center. And if I would say the general overview of the business is that it is growing at the moment, but I would say being in Norway, we see an additional growth due to the sustainability focus in this business. We have a Paris Agreement that we have to achieve, and Norway is clearly a solution to that with the, let's say, the way we're producing power and the cold and wet climate. So in addition to the growth caused by the pandemic, we see an increased growth due to a more focus on a sustainable operation.
Okay, and in terms of that, I mean, I think I can't remember, is it COP26 is happening? I think the postponed one later this year. So clearly governments everywhere are focusing more and more. What role do you think it's fair to expect the data center industry, whether governments place that emphasis or customers, who have got their own environmental sort of concerns? What role do you think the co-location industry as a whole and your company specifically has, to address this sort of demand for energy efficiency and wider sustainability sort of focus?
I would say the data center industry has done a lot over the last decade, and the efficiency in the data center has improved quite dramatic. But there is always a limit on how efficient you can be, and that limit is normally controlled by the environment, temperature in the region you're operating. If you're in a region where it's quite hot, you're struggling to be as energy efficient as in a region where you have a cold and wet climate. So I would say the data center industry will continue and has done a lot. I would say perhaps one thing that should be a little bit more focusing on is the way you're operating your computers inside the data center. How could you do with the more efficient fan solution? Should you look at immerse cooling to more or less improve the efficiency of the computer and not only the data center as itself? And I think if you look at the savings you're able to achieve by increasing your efficiency by 30 to 50%, there's quite a lot of savings annually. And the customers we are currently in dialogue, they have more or less a dual focus on their decision to go to Norway. One element is the cost savings of being in Norway due to higher efficiency and a lower power cost. But the other one is also the sustainable part of it. And we have had customers saying they want to be green instead of buy themselves green. So instead of buying a guarantee of origins, you're locating yourself in a country where the power production is 100% renewable, as it is in Norway.
And you mentioned an interesting point there, obviously, about the compute side. So again, do you feel an obligation, or are you actively helping customers, address, I guess, the energy efficiency side of the IT load, because traditionally, the colos say we've got a PUE of 1.0 or near enough, and we're great, but they ignore the fact that then the IT load comes in, it might be really inefficient and etc. So what's the balance? Do you have the right to inquire of your customer, what are you doing, how can we help you, or do you wait, and if the customer says we want to do this, or how can we improve, what's that sort of relationship?
We made a decision when we started the first build in going back 9 years, that we were to measure each customer's specific POE, meaning that we're able to identify the efficiency of each customer. And by doing that, you're able to benchmark a specific customer to perhaps the customer next door or in another data hall. So what we're doing with the customers in the monthly follow-up meeting is we go through their PUE and compare it to the average PUE and the best PUE in the data centers. And we more or less advise them on how to be more energy efficient. It could be with reducing the number of racks and actually removing some racks and increase the power density in those existing racks. It could be closing out air leaks. It could be reconfiguration of your computer fans. We could advise them in investing in new equipment, and you could actually calculate the cost savings of being close to the best, to the most energy efficient customer in your data center. And you could actually see it as a good business case to actually change our equipment, because we will then achieve a higher efficiency, and it will be paid back in a couple of years. So we do a lot on that element, and we also had a group of students writing a report together with Green Mountain and one of our customers, where we more or less went into the actual rack and made a study on how you could improve the energy efficiency on that. So that report has been used by my team in order to advise our customers for a little bit more than what we normally use.
Okay, and in terms of the industry more widely, I mean, do you think there's any potential conflict of interest? Because clearly colos, work by reserving an amount of power which a customer pays for, and then they obviously charge for the amount of power used. So do you think there's any conflict of interest with the sort of the profit making aspect of selling power to helping people use it more efficiently, or do you think everyone sort of got over that and recognizes that being a good sort of energy efficient organization is more important than making a quick buck?
If you're if a major part of your revenue is from power, you don't have the same incentives of being more energy efficient. I said when we started, we made a decision to measure each customer's PUE. In addition to that, we also decided that we will have a full pass-through on power. We will not make our revenue on power. We'll do that on our services. So that's meaning if you're able to be more efficient, we are not losing anything or we're not saving anything, but we're actually making it more cost efficient for our customers. So Green Mountain has that ambition to be the green and setting the green standard within our business and help our customers to improve. And you could talk about numbers on PUE, but based upon the facilities we have, I think we're role leading in energy efficiency.
Okay, and in terms of some of the just quickly the energy efficiency technologies that people are maybe looking at the moment, we've got sort of lithium-ion batteries that are growing maybe in usage in data centers. There's hydrogen fuel cells, which are perhaps a little bit further out. There's the sort of liquid cooling, which I think you mentioned earlier, and waste heat reuse. Just thoughts on, again, how applicable they are, you know, across the sort of data center population, and also what Green Mountain yourselves are doing with any or all of those.
I think we as a business has a responsibility to innovate in our business, to move the efficiency even better and be more sustainable in our daily work. And normally it's the hyperscalers that are the ones that have perhaps some scientific workloads, non-critical workload that they're able to innovate on. And Microsoft just won an award this summer on their fuel cell solution, where they're replacing the generators with fuel cell, saving a lot of diesel. And a part of what we're trying to do in Green Mountain is also take a role and not only let the hyperscalers do that. And we're currently working on a project together with a customer where we're looking into using fuel cells instead of diesel generators. The good thing about or the thing with fuel cells, you need hydrogen to as a fuel for the fuel cells. And in Telemark, on our DC2 Telemark, there is a hydrogen production facility just kilometers from the site, and by using some of the knowledge in that factory nearby, together with one vendor that's has developed quite good solution for this, we're actually hoping to have a fuel cell solution up running this year as an alternative for diesel. I'm not saying that this could be used commonly around all data centers and replace the generators immediately, but you have to innovate, you have to improve those solutions, you have to get knowledge on those solutions, and you need some players to start using it, start getting experience, and Green Mountain want to be one of those players.
Okay, and another, I mean, slightly related, I guess, is the sort of 5G rollout, IoT and edge. That's also a new area for data centers to address. Clearly, there's a sort of digital explosion, which, on the face of it, isn't very environmentally friendly. We're all going to use more and more, gadgets, whether it's the autonomous vehicles, etc. But how do you see, again, whether it's the colo industry generally or Green Mountain's role in helping to shape what that 5G, IoT, edge infrastructure might look like?
Yeah, 5G is currently on its way, already there in some places. IoT has been around for quite some time, and what we see now is that more and more companies are requesting space and power and cooling in order to more or less do analysis on those data, and not only collecting it, but also analyzing it, and we've quite a lot of interest from customers looking to Norway with a HPC and AI focus, where they're more or less putting up huge factories with similar equipment only to do compute on those data they're collecting. So we see that growth and are a part of that growth at the moment. When it comes to edge, I would say edge is a word that you could more or less perhaps define on one of our data centers. We're on the edge, serving quite a lot of customers doing operation in Norway. We could also take a role, or has taken a role, as an offload center for compute capacity in the London region and Amsterdam region, with a more cost-efficient solution. So we're involved in all of these, and I would say that is also an important part that's driving the need of more capacity forward.
Okay, and in terms of all this activity in the data center, one of the critical elements is obviously the people or the skills. I know in the UK there's quite a lot of concern that there just aren't enough qualified people, suitably qualified people. There are various initiatives to try and address that. Clearly, automation and the AI you referenced may sort of plug some of the gaps. But what are your thoughts again on the industry overall in terms of the skills shortage or not, if you don't see it as that, and also in terms of where you are and how you address, do you have a problem, or how do you see the situation?
We have 3 data centers in Norway now, one in Stavanger, one in Telemark, and one in Oslo. Stavanger is on the west coast, Telemark is in the middle of Norway, and Oslo on the east part of Norway. Being in Oslo with close to the or as the capital of Norway, we see getting skilled people as a challenge. There is a lot of other competitors in the region, and it hasn't been as easy as we hoped to get skillful people. If you go to the Telemark side, it's been more or less the opposite, because it's a small municipality where we're located in, and we see quite a lot of people born in that city want to move back to it. But the reason they haven't moved back is that it's not possible to get a job. So we more or less have access to quite a lot of people living all around in Norway, want to move back to the city, and they are skillful. If you look at the Stavanger side, Stavanger is the oil capital of Norway, and the oil and gas industry is currently having quite a lot of challenges, and I think it will have that for the time forward. And we see that a lot of people working in the oil and gas industry, they're working with IT, they're working with the process industry. So it's more or less, you could compare what they're doing on an oil rig to what you're doing in a data center. You have to use sensors, you have to use automation, you have to do maintenance, you have to do what you're doing on an oil rig on a data center. So in the Stavanger region, getting skillful people has not been a problem at all. And that is why we as well are focusing on the continued growth in Norway. We are currently today looking at 2 sites close to the Stavanger region. So we think the availability of a skillful workforce is one of those reasons. Another reason is there's quite a lot of connectivity currently being built and completed, and a lot of that is from the west south coast of Norway. And in addition, a lot of the power that's produced in Norway are produced in the same region. So by being located on the west coast, having access to skillful workforce, power, and connectivity, I would say it's an ideal place for future growth.
Okay, I mean, that was actually going to be one of the final question, probably, was about that, your plans. So you've alluded to some development in Stavanger, but elsewhere, whether in Norway or I think we previously chatted, you've alluded to the fact that you might look, outside of the country as well. So are you able to share any sort of general or specific sort of plans as to where you might be headed?
The thing is, where Green Mountain is growing more or less exponentially. We have had we have the revenue we have in 2020 is 4 times the revenue we had in 2017. So the growth is phenomenal. What we have to do as well is to follow up with the organization. We have to secure new areas to continue the growth. We have the possibility to grow quite some time on our existing sites, but looking into the landscape for the next 5 years, I would say my biggest belief are in Norway. I think the largest growth will be in Norway, and that is why we as well has the highest focus on building more capacity in Norway. We would probably as well do something outside of Norway. Still nothing decided, but it's more or less following some of our existing customers and meeting their demands in other regions than Norway. So I'm looking forward to the future. I'm expecting quite a continuous growth, and Green Mountain will take a part of that growth.
Well, that's brilliant. I've really enjoyed chatting. We covered a lot of ground and some fascinating insights. So thanks very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
Thank you as well.